All right, next up we have Erik Osterman. He's the Director of Operations at a company you've probably heard of, CBS Interactive. So RightScale's first version, I think, came out in about January 2007, and I think Erik signed up on January 2nd, 2007. So he is a longtime cloud user, one of the dinosaurs in the space, and looking forward to learning from Erik. Thanks, Erik.
Well, thanks for that introduction. So, my name's Erik Osterman, and I'm Director of Operations over at CBS Interactive. And what I want to cover is why RightScale. You're going to find a few competing vendors in this space over at the Cloud Expo next door, but I challenge you to find one as versatile as RightScale. I want to cover 3 of the compelling justifications for their product. These are some of the reasons that these are some of the reasons that we use their product, and I don't think these get enough attention. This is why we're continuing to push our agenda throughout the CBS Interactive organization. But first, let me go into a little bit of background about myself. I'm an active back-end software engineer who's developed in everything from Ruby to Java to C++. I got my start on AWS much earlier than most. Back in 2006, some friends and I founded a company, and at the same time, EC2 had just entered into private beta. We scored ourselves an invite and built our entire product around it. I went on to found 2 more companies built on AWS and EC2 before transitioning into a consulting role, helping other startups migrate their infrastructure to EC2. One of those companies was Clicker.com, where I joined as Director of Operations, and by way of an acquisition at the beginning of this year in March, we were acquired by CBS Interactive. CBS Interactive. We're the online division for CBS, the broadcast network. I'm sure you might have heard of some of the brands we own. It's TV.com, CNET, CBS Sports, 60 Minutes, to name a few. It's frankly where a lot of very successful internet startups end up. We have we're a top 10 global web property and maintain the largest premium online content network. What I want to talk about is more from my technical perspective, since I am an engineer. I want to talk about why RightScale is a framework for operations, a platform for standardization, and the evolution of operations. MVC frameworks have been all the rage in web development for the last 10 years, but it's taken its sweet time to reach the world of operations. PHP has Symfony and Kohana. Ruby has Rails, and Python has Django. But what has Ops had? It hasn't had that much. For all the reasons that you should be using a framework in web development, I believe we should be using it in operations. Frameworks help break your applications down to components that are more manageable. Instead of spending all your time busy on the plumbing, you can jump right in and work on your application. Frameworks help you create a more consistent way of doing things. They give you a set of coding standards and naming conventions that aid in the long-term management of your application. Good frameworks don't get in your way. So I want to compare, therefore, RightScale to a framework. In RightScale, you can put all your configuration logic in write scripts. Think of this as your models. Use server templates to tie it all together in the form of views. Then let RightScale launch, manage, and provision these servers so that it acts as your controller. Now, RightScale doesn't get in your way either. So at CBS Interactive, there are many business units that actually use something called CF Engine. CF Engine is like Puppet or Chef. We can use a write script to install CF Engine, and they can continue going on their business as they're used to. All the meanwhile, RightScale continues to act as the cloud controller, launching and provisioning the servers. By designing things in a framework-like fashion, we're building up this library of reusable components that can be shared across the organization. I want to show just some of the things that we have built templates for already. It reads like the lexicon of buzzwords for everything a trendy startup is doing these days. We built our own write scripts and server templates for all of them, and they can be reused across the organization. Frameworks help simplify the long-term management and extensibility of your application. And in order to make this even more clear, I want to compare it to a very common framework that a lot of you are probably familiar with. And it's the jQuery framework in JavaScript. At TV.com, we built our front-end UI using the jQuery framework, so we can build a cross-browser compliant website much faster and simpler than if we had to build it from the ground up. If a new browser comes out and breaks some compatibility, we don't really need to worry about it because the jQuery community will fix it before it even hits general release. The comparison here is that RightScale is a lot like the jQuery framework, but for cloud management. By building for a RightScale, we know it'll work in every cloud that RightScale supports. Since we decided we weren't in the business of building our own cloud management platform, we decided we shouldn't be building it ourselves. Therefore, we offload the responsibility of integrating with various public and private clouds to RightScale. We let them worry about innovating in the cloud space. All the meanwhile, we're focused on our core objectives, which is building a more successful brand. So, frameworks offer a consistent way of doing things through standardization. And the way I want to compare this is, again, with the JavaScript framework jQuery. In jQuery, you know how you can use the $ method to access any element in the DOM based on a particular ID, like the login form? So we so it works in every browser, and we don't have to worry about coming up with any special hacks. It just works. Well, RightScale does the same thing. By allowing us to design for the RightScale platform, we know it'll work in any cloud that RightScale supports. An example here is with tagging. Tagging is the evolution of service discovery. Originally, administrators were preoccupied coming up with the proper names to give hosts to all your servers in a deployment. Now, you can just use tags. So you have your web app servers running Tomcat, perhaps. You tag those Tomcat. You have your Memcache cluster running Memcache. You tag those servers with Memcache. When this tagging happens at the time you boot, and you use this command, rstag, add, app, role, Memcache, etc. So when your app servers boot up, they can query the RightScale API using this command and find all the Memcache servers and discover what their host names are. Well, this is very similar to existing functionality that exists on EC2 today. EC2 supports tagging. EC2 has command line tools, but it only works on EC2. What if you want your deployments to span multiple clouds so you can be more agile and be able to move things around in terms of failure? Well, this is what we get with RightScale because they expose a consistent interface that works across all clouds. Taking this a step further, what we're doing is essentially commoditizing our infrastructure. We don't care where it runs anymore. It can be in a public cloud or a private cloud. An example is at CBS Interactive, we have our data centers spread across the entire globe. An effort is underway now to start to consolidate some of these data centers into more modern infrastructures. Well, the problem is that our applications in these data centers were written to run in these very specialized configurations, and they weren't designed to be easily picked up and moved to any other data center. We are now at a stage where we need to be moving these servers to a new data center, and I think we've found the right way of doing that. Since we anyways have to rebuild it from scratch from the ground up with our hands, we can now do it on RightScale. And that will allow us that in the future, we can launch these servers in other private clouds that we build in our own data centers or in other public clouds. My goal at CBS Interactive now is to reduce the rate and amount of which we acquire operational technical debt. This starts with maintaining a lot less of the code ourselves. We also have to get in the habit of constantly building and provisioning servers so we keep the gears greased and the parts moving, so that this is nothing new to us. CBS has a lot of technical debt, partially because we've been immensely successful. We've been around a lot longer than most of the companies out there. But now, so when we first started this, the tools available to do DevOps weren't there. We had to build a lot of them in-house. Now, a lot of these tools exist as open source or provided by RightScale, so we can't afford to continue maintaining them in-house. We need to, since they're not essential to our core business objectives. Frameworks make sense to engineers. Rubyists always talk about keeping things dry. We like simplicity and consistency. This is what we get with RightScale. If you move your engineering teams to RightScale, you're going to end up building a more technically savvy engineering team. I don't think it's necessarily to silo your ops teams from your engineers. I believe that it should be. I believe that engineers need to start learning the trends in DevOps, and engineers that don't stay abreast with this trend will find it harder and harder to find work. Engineers who learn how to code for cloud infrastructures will write better code for your infrastructures. And since everybody is moving to the cloud, engineers need to follow at the same pace, and they need to get on board. What more, I see that engineers who are responsible for maintaining a lot of their own deployments on the cloud take steps to make them even easier to build and deploy to our servers. What it comes down to is reducing the operational bottlenecks. And I think we've really succeeded with this at TV.com. We have 20 engineers working on individual projects getting released on a weekly basis. We have over 40 different in-house projects that we build and maintain. We have 2 people in operations and essentially no bottlenecks. We're able to get by with this because we've empowered our engineers on how to use RightScale, how to build their own server templates, how to build their own RPMs to deploy, how to relaunch servers, etc. So that when we have problems that come up, they're able to respond to it. If load spikes and we need to figure out how to tune the application, they can log right into the app servers and see. If their server seg fault, they can go in and use GDB and figure out why. When PagerDuty calls them, I don't have to always be the one on call to fix these things because our engineers themselves know how to go in and solve them. All the meanwhile, I can sleep pretty well. It comes down to operational insurance. The more people in your organization that know how your application works in the front end and the back end, the more resilient you are towards failure of the humankind. And this comes up regularly. I mean, in San Francisco, if I get hit by a bus, which seems to be happening all the time now, it just happened in front of my apartment the other day, things at CBS will fortunately continue to keep on running. The way I envision our future is to look a lot more like this. It's a hybrid cloud environment, and a federation of clouds where infrastructures are broken down into smaller divisions or regions with some degree of internal autonomy. I want to be able to let business units choose where they want to run their application, how they want to scale it out, and what technology they want to use. I want them to be as agile as we were as a startup at Clicker.com. We're at the tip of the iceberg right now. We've just started getting into the private cloud stuff. At Clicker, we were a cash-strapped startup, and we couldn't afford to build these private clouds and data centers. But now we're at CBS, and I'm looking to build a more future-proof infrastructure. We've learned a lot of things along the way. And one of them is that RightScale just gives you the tools that you need, but isn't the silver bullet for 100% uptime. You still need to build for fault tolerance and high availability. I like to say that we're running in a constant state of failure. Things are always being restarted, failing over, app servers are crashing, things are coming in and out of the load balancers. And for this reason, when Amazon Apocalypse hit in April of this year, we came away relatively unscathed. We had servers crash in production, we had master databases go offline, but we were still able to recover from it. I'd encourage you to check out one of my favorite blogs. It's highscalability.com, no affiliation to me, for some inspiration. And for those of you staying throughout the rest of the day here, to check out Roll Your Own Server Templates with Daryl Eaton and myself for some more of my experiences. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of the conference.